Alright, I know it's not Monday, but I've had a lot of coffee this morning, and I just want to share a funny story with all of you about what sleep deprivation does to the mind. I've had quite a few of these goof-ups over the years, and since I've already shared the embarrassing tales of how I blew my wrist up with baking soda and vinegar, and my horrendous idea of trying to woo a weeaboo back in high school, I may as well share this one with you all today. So, here we go with Sleep Deprivation Tales, the Earthquake Edition. I'm fairly certain most of you have ascertained that I am not in any way from the Pacific Coast. Neither have I ever lived on the Pacific Coast. Most of you might think that because I used to live in the Appalachians, that I have no idea what it's like to live through an earthquake. Well, you would be wrong. However, these have not been the everything's falling off the walls, car alarms are screaming, dad looks up from his morning paper and says, "Oh, is it Tuesday again already?" sort of earthquakes. No, thankfully, that's one natural disaster of such scale that I have missed out on. However, I have been through a few. The first one I actually slept through. I woke up to a couple of tilted picture frames. But since I was still living in a mobile home at the time, I figured my mother had just stomped through or slammed the door and caused them to fall. But no, first one in that area in years that people actually could feel, and I slept right through it. Mind you, the epicenter was a couple of hours out, so our area at the time didn't feel much, but still, it made me glad I wasn't goofing around at the top of a barn at the time. But if most people couldn't really tell while they were driving a car when it happened, I figured it made for a silly hypothetical question. It did make me a bit uneasy around cotton swabs for a while after, though. Ugh. The second time was actually when I first moved out here to the Midwest. A couple of months into my relocation, and I wake up on the couch to everything trembling. Now, because I'm only just barely awake enough to register that something is making my body shake, but the rest of the world is still silent, I assume that I just overworked the day before and that my muscles are doing some weird spasms because of that. So as the trembling dies down a bit, I go back to sleep. I could not have been asleep for more than 10 minutes when I hear the distinct sound of someone knocking on the patio doors. I rouse myself up, rub my arms and legs for a brief moment in case they started spasming again, and go peek through the blinds to see who it is. It's my neighbor, K-Witch. Go check out the Momo and Pendulum stories, she's in those. So I throw on a hat and my jacket and go open the door for her. She's all excited and is practically hopping up and down on her toes. I say my good mornings to her and ask what's up, because that look certainly meant something was going down. She immediately blurts out, "Did you guys feel that earthquake?" Shortly after, my roommates come through and I learned that one of them had gotten a text from a buddy that lived where it went down, roughly a 45-minute drive away. And that's how I slept through my second earthquake. Now we come to last week. As you all might have seen, I just posted some sound effects last Monday and postponed Wednesday's video a full 24 hours because I was feeling pretty rough. I'll spare you the details of that day because it's a whole nother story for another time. We'll suffice to say that on Monday, I had maybe 3 hours of sleep and, at one point, was very hyped up on caffeine but still infinitely tired. Since the event I needed to attend had been called off, I had a few hours to kill until I needed to be ready for my other plans, so I decided to lay down and try to sleep. At that point, however, I was both physically and mentally exhausted, but I had so much caffeine in my system and was feeling so off from my already messed up sleep schedule that I couldn't go to sleep right away. So, I decided to find some music in order to help speed that along. After setting numerous alarms on both my clock and phone, I flopped down into my mound of blankets, popped in my earbuds, and brought up the app in question. I suppose it was because of the sound effects that I uploaded that day. Because I noticed there was a certain video in my recommendations that was quite intriguing. a video entitled Earthquake Sounds You Never Want to Hear in Japan. For those of you interested, I popped that link in the description below. Because I'm now curious as to what this is, I click the video. Now, I'm expecting to hear actual sounds of being in an earthquake, but what I am treated to is how different the emergency broadcast system is in Japan from America. Instead of the bazooka-loud blaring tones that you get over our speakers and the haunting, eerie screech that we have from, like, tornado sirens, I hear this little light, synthesized twinkling noise, followed by a very calm woman stating that what I assume is Japanese for "take cover or you're going to die." This is followed by several different warnings of recent earthquake activity and an impending tsunami, from both televised broadcasts and emergency crews outside of a building doing announcements as they drive through. Well, as I'm listening to this, I'm starting to nod off, so I've barely got one eye cracked open as my face is slowly sinking further into my pillow. I'm just barely recognizing the words on the screen as I start to doze off. Then, it gets to a point in the video where it says, "It happens." In the video, this comes across as a cacophony of all the various warnings we've heard up to this point, implying that this is what you would hear when a massive, potentially tsunami-triggering earthquake hits the area you are in. That in itself could be fairly freaky to hear in a dark room to a sleep-deprived person who is slowly slipping into sleep. But no one expects the moment that it reaches the earthquake point in the video to experience everything to actually start vibrating. Now mind you, I'm about as far away from Japan by airplane as it is from here driving back to the mountains. I am in the US. I am not hearing ye old foghorn volume noises of our own emergency broadcast system, nor any English. I am hearing what sounds like sound effects that didn't make it into an NES game, and only a handful of words that I can fully comprehend when I'm awake. But having learned my lesson about ignoring and sleeping through the last 2 earthquakes, I jerk wide awake, yank the headphones out of my ears, and start fumbling around for my glasses so I can see if everything in the dim light of the other room is starting to react to the vibrations. Instead, there's a full stop on all shaking activity, and a very confused cat looking up at me, with one leg cocked up in the air mid-lick. I had been so tired, I hadn't even noticed the cat was at the foot of the bed. So when she started to give herself a bath, the vibrations of her moving somehow figured into my starting to dream brain. In my sleep-deprived, half-asleep mental state, I somehow thought that, with the way my luck had been that day, it was just a perfectly cued moment that an earthquake started up at the moment it hit that spot in the video. And that, kiddos, is why you don't put scary videos on loop when you're about to fall asleep. Well, I hope you all had a good laugh out of this one. Lord knows my granny sure did. Anyway, you know the drill on which buttons to press. Have a good one.